Hi everyone, my name is Bridget and welcome to my channel. So today's messages are about the pressure that we feel before breakthrough. Before I begin, I would just like to clarify that I do not believe in religion. I believe in God and Jesus Christ, and that Jesus Christ came to show us a way to peace and abundance for all. There was a time on my walk with God when I believed that every season of intense pressure meant that something was going wrong. Whenever anxiety arose or emotional pain became overwhelming, I assumed I had lost my way or that I was failing. But as I have grown closer to God, He revealed something that completely changed my understanding. What if the very thing we judge as our greatest setback is actually God's invitation into a greater transformation? Looking back over my journey, I can now see a pattern. There were seasons when everything inside me felt under pressure. My mind searched for answers, my emotions wanted relief, and my ego wanted control. Yet every time I surrendered and trusted God, a profound revelation followed. The old version of myself would fall away, and a deeper understanding would emerge. The first revelation God gave me was that He was teaching me to let go of the false self, the identity built from fear, survival, approval, and control. The world tells us to strengthen that identity, but Jesus taught us something very different. He taught that whoever loses their life for God's sake will find it. Before resurrection comes surrender. Before new life comes the cross. Recently, I experienced this cycle again. The familiar pressure returned, bringing anxiety and emotional discomfort. My first reaction was to judge it as something bad that needed to be fixed. I wanted to escape it as quickly as possible. But through prayer and surrender, God revealed something unexpected. He showed me that what I was experiencing was not necessarily evidence that I was moving away from Him, but that He was changing me. My understanding, my perspective, and my way of being was shifting. Because I had never experienced this level of transformation before, my mind had no reference point for it. The unknown felt dangerous, so I labeled it as negative. And what I've learned is where we are going, the unknown, we have to be uncomfortable with not knowing, because where God is taking us, we've never been before. Yet God showed me that sometimes what we interpret as falling apart may actually be part of being remade. This does not mean that every difficult emotion or every struggle is spiritual transformation. There are times when we need rest, wisdom, support, or professional help. But on my journey, God revealed that some seasons of pressure were invitations to trust Him more deeply, rather than fear what I could not yet understand. I believe many of us experience this. We judge the process before we understand its purpose. We ask God to remove this discomfort when He may be using it to reveal greater freedom. Just as gold is refined by fire, our hearts are refined through surrender. The fire is not there to destroy the gold, but to remove what no longer belongs. The ego cannot distinguish between transformation and a threat. It only knows that it is losing control, so it creates fear, doubt, and worst-case scenarios. It tells us that something terrible is happening when perhaps God is simply asking us to trust Him more completely. Jesus continually invited His followers into this kind of faith. He taught us to walk with confidence in the Father, even when we cannot see the entire path ahead. Faith is not the absence of uncertainty. Faith is choosing to trust God in the middle of uncertainty. God also showed me why He often gives understanding only after we are ready to receive it. I used to wonder why He did not explain everything beforehand, but if He had, it would have remained information. Instead, He allowed me to live the lesson until it became part of who I am. So truths cannot simply be studied, they must be embodied. You can read about surrender, but eventually life presents a moment where surrender becomes your only option. You can learn about faith, but one day you will stand in circumstances where faith is all you have. It is then that knowledge becomes wisdom. This also helped me understand why certain patterns repeat in our lives. Sometimes we think God is punishing us because we face the same challenge again. But perhaps He is lovingly inviting us to see with new eyes. With new eyes. The situation may look familiar, yet is calling us to respond differently. The breakthrough does not always come because our circumstances change. Often it comes because we change. Then we create additional suffering by judging that change as something bad before we understand what God is doing. How much peace might we find instead of immediately asking, why is this happening to me? We ask, Father, what are you teaching me through this? That single question shifts our focus from fear to faith. Throughout my journey, God has consistently shown me that His purpose is not simply to improve my life, but to transform my heart. The kingdom of God is not merely something we wait for. Jesus taught that it begins within us. As we surrender the false self and allow His love to shape us, we become more aligned with the life He intended. So today, when pressure comes, I try not to judge it too quickly. I still experience uncertainty, but I no longer automatically assume that God has left me. Instead, I ask whether He is inviting me into a deeper level of trust. This has become one of the greatest lessons of my walk with God. Sometimes what feels like breaking is actually becoming. Sometimes what feels like losing is actually receiving. Sometimes what feels like the end is simply the beginning of the person God has been preparing you to become. So if you are walking through a season that you cannot understand, do not lose heart. Keep your eyes on God. Walk by faith and not by sight. Trust that the Father sees what you cannot yet see. And remember that His work in you is often revealed only after you have surrendered to it. For me, every season that once felt like an ending became the doorway to a greater revelation of His love, His wisdom, and the person He was calling me to become. So I hope this message finds someone today. Wishing you a magical weekend. God bless.